Now, while many gamers associate Ninja Gaiden as a 3D character action game, there are still plenty of fans who remember its true roots as a 2D side-scroller for the original NES in the 80s that spawned 2 sequels, and it was famed for not only its excellent but tough platforming, but also its strong presentation, especially with its narrative, as well as being Tecmo's equivalent to Sega Shinobi and Capcom's Strider. However, in the 90s, after Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom, and Ninja Gaiden Shadow, the series would seem to vanish for a while, and only come back with Team Ninja, turning it into a brand new, completely different genre. And it was called into question whether or not if 2D Ninja Gaiden will return, when other franchises that had both 2D and 3D games were able to coexist peacefully, especially in the current day. However, fans finally got that answer with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound took people by surprise with its reveal alone. Announced at the Game Awards 2024, Ragebound was a brand new 2D Ninja Gaiden game, going back to its more classic roots, but with some modern features. Being developed by the Game Kitchen, the same devs that made critically acclaimed 2D pixel games, with both the likes of the 2 Blasphemous games, and published by both .emu in collaboration with Koei Tecmo. In fact, it was Koei Tecmo themselves that gave .emu the opportunity to make a 2D Ninja Gaiden game, and they approached the Game Kitchen as they were impressed by Blasphemous. In fact, the studio began working on Ragebound about halfway into the development of the second Blasphemous game. But, believe it or not, Ragebound was originally going to lean more into the 3D games, as they were inspired by the actual 3D Ninja Gaiden games, and they wanted to experiment that form of gameplay, but it proved to be a little bit more difficult to do it in a 2D game. So they decided to go back into the format of the classic 2D Ninja Gaiden games, with having a larger emphasis on keeping momentum and finding ways to dispatch enemies quickly, with Team Ninja serving as consultant for the game to provide feedback for the Game Kitchen after they showed initial early builds of the game, one of which had the addition of a second playable character belonging to the Black Spider Ninjas, initially an idea that Team Ninja's own Fumihiko Yasuda pitched for a brand new spin-off called Konichi Gaiden that would star Genshin's daughter. However, the higher-ups initially turned that pitch down, and also Ragebound was part of the whole Year of the Ninja phase, alongside Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and Ninja Gaiden 4. It also had a demo for Steam Next Fest around in June, and I know because I played it and did a video on that which you can watch over there. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound will release on July 31st, 2025 for both PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, Nintendo Switch, and PC. And while lifetime sales of this was currently about 154,000 units, mainly on PC, it did at least score an 84 to 87 on Metacritic, with many praising for its brilliant visuals, its combat, platforming, and great level of difficulty, as well as a strong dynamic between the 2 main leads. Though some hardcore fans did critique from its more generous checkpoints, and also the short runtime was also called into question. But now, with this being now over a year since it came out, how does this game compare as a whole to its more 3D brethren? Well, that's what this review is for. Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here, and let's slash our way into the penultimate episode of our Ninja Gaiden review marathon with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. So the story features our new main protagonist, Kenji Mozu, a young Hayabusa ninja and apprentice to the GOAT that is Ryu Hayabusa, where he's trained by him. However, Ryu receives word that his father has actually died. Like damn, rest in peace Joe Hayabusa. So he heads off to America to honor his will and find who killed him, leaving Kenji to protect the village. However, that doesn't last, as it gets invaded by fiends led by their own lord, Dazak, as the barrier between their world and the humans is broken, and also Once again, it shows on how many times the Hayabusa village gets attacked in this series, almost on par with Fairy Tail and Power Rangers. It's honestly just comical at this point. So after fending off their initial attack, he goes in pursuit. Meanwhile, we also follow our other main protagonist, a young Konichi named Komori from the rival Black Spider Ninja clan, who's fending off the same fiend invasion on their home turf, and is ordered by their boss, and yep,
somehow
a barber,
returned
to make a deal with the fiends and seal Jazak in this dagger. So she goes in pursuit of them. However, both sides encounter their generals, and ultimately suffer a near fatal blow, and just on the verge of dying. So, unwillingly to save themselves, Kenji has no choice but to inject the dagger and infuse Komori inside of him, becoming as one. And so, with this newfound power, they ultimately have to set their differences aside, and along the way, they'll encounter various allies and enemies, and ultimately have to stop Jazak and his rise to power. And that's the story here, and like with Dragon Sword, it's both simple yet cohesive, with it being a cool globe-trotting adventure, but while having the focus be on both Kenji and Komori's differences, and how at first they don't get along due to the clan's overall long rivalry and history, but ultimately acknowledge that they're both on the same side. And there's even some nice twists and turns in the narrative. Again, while it's not high art, but damn, this story had me invested from start to finish, and help that there's a decent amount of cutscenes here that ultimately don't take away from the overall pace of the game, and also it's helped by the characters themselves, with Kenji being a more young and hothead that's both honorable and respectable to his clan, opposed to Komori, who's more of a savage and sassy one, and their banter together just made it overall compelling, and they perform a nice relationship with each other. Also, there's some genuine funny moments here.
Stupid computer! Sora!
Other side characters like Muramasa returning is pretty cool, and Obaba. Yep, she's back, unfortunately. And the villains are pretty solid here, almost on par with Ninja Gaiden 2. And there's even some nice reference and lore to the series, which is nice for continuity's sake. Upon that, there are 2 alternate endings in this, and let's just say the one you pick is very bittersweet. But all in all, and mind you this is not a knock on the modern games, but Ragebound delivers a pretty simple but overall good story. Now we get on to the graphics, and this game just looks so beautiful, which is expected as the game kitchen nails in delivering just strong 2D pixel art that's just both pleasing to the eyes. And Ragebound is no exception here, with the characters, levels, enemies, and environments just looking absolutely crisp, and the cutscenes played through this rather top tier style that's akin to like an anime, and it's just mwah, chef's kiss. And as for performance, this game is phenomenal, with my PC running it at 144 frames per second with no hiccups. All in all, Ragebound is just a beautiful looking game, no notes whatsoever. Now we get on to the meat of the game. So Ragebound is a 2D side-scroller platformer with things like running, dodging, climbing up, as well as jumping and going up and down being very fluid, as well as having standard attacks that are both fast and responsive, with Kenji's swift sword attacks or Komori's shurikens, let alone her daggers, as well as even performing a lunge attack. There's also other things like being able to use guillotine throw to bounce over flying projectiles or flying enemies for momentum, and being able to attack while hanging is pretty cool. And then you have the hypercharge, where after you kill an enemy that has a colored aura, it grants you a powerful attack that can slice tougher foes in one hit, with blue being used for Kenji's melee weapons, while Komori has more of a purple aura that leans to more long-range weapons. Alongside that, the hypercharge does dissolve quicker if you take damage or don't hit enemies in time. Though a new mechanic is also introduced with Ki, where after you fuse with Komori, it basically allows you to use your attacks, though it's limited, and can only be fulfilled by Kenji's own attacks. And then lastly, you have the Ragebound arts. These red orbs that glow after performing a successful hypercharge kill, and when activated, you can perform a powerful art, akin to a Ninpo in Ninja Gaiden. And there's various spells to unlock, like one that can deal a devastating blow, or one that can even refill your health. Among that, there's also Muramasa's shop, where you can stock in for different techniques and secret arts, with them costing gold scarabs, which you can find throughout all of the levels. Moving on, you also have the checkpoints that being these Muramasa statues that can refill your health, alongside these demon chambers, where you can temporarily play as Komori in these challenge gauntlets for a limited time, some of which can find crystal skulls, or some that are needed to solve puzzles in order to progress. And then moving on, we have the enemies and bosses, with the enemies ranging from fiends to other ninjas to later robots, the CIA, and then mutant fiends, with many of them being just absolutely fast and easy to kill, while some are really tougher in packs and require precision and speed to kill them. And some bigger foes even require hypercharge to kill them fast. And none of them are absolutely annoying. Well, maybe except for these small clawy things, but a lot of them are really great and will test you. But it's where the bosses that really excel in that difficulty. And like with Dragon Sword, a lot of them are actually really great here, with the exception of two, a former one that's just, well, meh, and a latter one that just downright sucks. Majority of these bosses put your skills and reflexes to the absolute test, and are punishing in the correct way possible, with many standouts like Rivashi, Gurkva, Obsidirai, and the final boss being just phenomenal bosses. Also, is in a drop. At the end of each level, you also get a ranking system, rating based on both your time and performance, and I think it's really sick. All in all, the general gameplay in Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is near perfect in my eyes, and it's really impressive. However, there are a few nitpicks. One is that the crouching attack is a bit cumbersome, especially against those small enemies. And another thing is that while the guillotine boost thing is fun to pull off, I can feel there's a little bit of a lag here, and sometimes it doesn't always connect with what you're hitting. And another issue would have to be the hypercharge, where it does get frustrating as the moment you get it, chances are you will lose it fast. And while I did give praises to the bosses for mostly being great here, the battleship one is kinda lackluster, and this blob-like mutant thing is easily the worst boss in the game. It's just such a pain in the ass. And I guess there are some other grievances here from folks, like the onslaught of checkpoints, and maybe not playing as Ryu Hayabusa, though I didn't mind the latter. As for the former, it's not too egregious, as hard mode does fix that. Though another complaint is that the rewards you do in hard mode, and well, from what I hear, it's kinda cool, but at the same time it's not exciting. If you know, you know. But outside of all of that, the gameplay in Ragebound is absolutely superb. Now we get on to the level design, with the levels having various stage hazards and platforms, like spikes, projectiles, floating enemies, ledges, and walls to climb, as well as different mechanics introduced, like zip lines, conveyor belts, and even provide some really cool chase sequences that are really intense and exciting. And the movement for both Kenji's and Komori's are pretty damn good. I even love the motorcycle and jet ski levels here. And with each level having a different backdrop, it makes every level stand out and feel refreshing, and not feel like it was copied and pasted or reused, which is really nice. Then we get to the soundtrack, and out of everything that deserves praise in this game, the soundtrack alone deserves so much here, with this being composed by Sergio De Prado, as well as having collaborations with the original composers of the NES games. The score provides lots of catchy synths mixed with an electric guitar that makes each level and boss theme feel both very energetic and exciting, as well as catch that old school NES nostalgia, but with a modern twist, including a badass remix of Ryu's theme from the original NES games. So, as always, let's jam! As for the content, Ragebound offers a lot here, with the incentive of replaying levels to get better ranks, but also completing side challenges in the mix, and collecting crystal skulls. Upon that, there's also the secret ops, which are basically tougher bonus levels to go through. Alongside that, there are 2 different endings you can unlock when refighting the final boss. And lastly, there's an epilogue, where after you have played the game on hard mode, you get an additional final section with a secret ending. Not only that, but you can also unlock various costumes. And hard mode, where that also makes the levels a lot more harder, with few less checkpoints, more stage hazards, tougher new enemies, and bosses that come with their own various hazards and tricks that makes it a lot more challenging. A standard run can take around say 6 to 9 hours, but completing everything should take you around say 15 hours. And I think either side is where hours are well spent in this game. So with that, how is this game? Well, simply put, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is awesome, and a nice return to the old style but with a modern twist, with the game kitchen providing a brand new cool 2D Ninja Gaiden game that I think even newcomers will get a kick out of. The visuals are beautiful, the story was really good, with Kenji and Komori just being absolutely great additions. The gameplay and level design is fantastic, the bosses are pretty good, and the soundtrack is top tier. It's a really fantastic game with minor faults. I'm surprised they didn't add any DLC, much unlike how Sega did with Shinobi Art of Vengeance. A game that I think will deserve its own review at some point. But all in all, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound deserves 4.5 Komoris out of 5. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and let me know down in the comments if you guys played this game and what you think about it. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe if you're someone new, and hit that notification icon so you can stay up to date for the next major review. Not only that, but you can also hit up the hype up button to get hyped for that as well as this one. It really does help out a lot here. You can also follow me on my various socials and also support me on Patreon if you like ad-free videos and extra goodies yourself. And special thanks to my patrons for watching this video and supporting me. Anyway, with all that said however, tune in next time, cause the last review of this marathon is none other than